Hi, welcome to Garavo. In this episode, we'll be solving a question named plus or minus. So this question has been taken from Hackerrank and I will get into the problem. So here we have an array and it includes the numbers 110, minus 2 and minus 5. So what we have to do is we have to separate this array into three categories. So the categories are plus, minus and 0. I mean the numbers is either positive, negative or 0. Our task in this question would be to find the total number of ratio of each of these categories. So if we have, let us say in this case we have two positive numbers, 1 0 and two negative numbers, and the total number of elements that we have is 5. So the ratio for the positive numbers would be 2 out of 5, and that of 0 would be 1 out of 5, and that of negative numbers is also 2 out of 5. Our task would be to find this ratio and print its decimal number up to 6 decimal places. So the logic that we are going to use is we are going to traverse this array element by element. So while traversing this array, we are going to count three values. The three values are the count of positive values, the count of negative values and the count of 0. For these three values, we'd have three if statements inside the for loop, and at the end of this for loop we would have the value of these three variables. The only task that is remaining is to find the ratio. So we have this array and we could easily find the length of this array. So using this length, all we have to do is we have to divide the count that we found after this traversal divided by the total number of values, that is the length of this array, and that would give us the ratio of each of these values, right? So the positive count divided by n, that is the length of this array, would give us the positive ratio. Negative count divided by n would give us the negative ratio, and similarly 0 count divided by n would give us the ratio for zeros. As I said, we have to print this till 6 decimal places, that is the ratio should be till 6 decimal places. So if we had 2 out of 5, it would give us 0.4, but we should not print 0.4, we should print 0.400000. It should have 5 zeros. I don't know how many zeros I specified, but the point is we should have 6 decimal places. And similarly for 1 out of 5, the value is 0.2, but we should not print 0.2, we should print 0.200000. So that is the thing that we have to do, and we have a trick up our sleeve to do that too. Now let's get to the program and code this logic. So here we are in Hackerrank and we have this problem. The link to this problem will be given in the description, but we just need to complete this function, and the size of the elements in Hackerrank are really small. So what I do is I will copy this function, go to an IDE, type everything there and then paste it back here. So here we have our IDE. We have the required libraries imported and the plus minus function written here. Let us complete this function and copy it to Hackerrank. So the first step would be to assign three variables or declare three variables. Those values would be positive count, negative count and 0 count. I'm using the double data type here instead of int. Usually we have the count to be as an integer, but we have double here. Let me tell you why in just a minute at the end of the program when we find the ratios. You'll know exactly why are we using a double and what is the problem we'd get when we use an integer at the end of this program. So stay till that. So the value is positive count is equal to 0, and similarly we are assigning negative count and a value for 0 count as well. So negative count is equal to 0 and so double 0 count. I'm making hell of a lot of mistakes here. I don't know why. Okay, so equal to 0. Now we have the three variables. So our next task would be to traverse this array, write those three if statements which finds whether it is a positive number, negative number or 0, and then update the value of positive count, negative count and 0 count. So for int I is equal to 0, I is less than n, I plus plus, and we get a error here. What is the error? Because we do not have n declared anywhere in this function, and so we are given that the variable is not declared yet. So we'll declare n, and n is the size of this array or vector to be precise. So we are using the size of function to find the length of this array or vector in this case, and store it in the value of n, and we are using that value in the for loop to traverse this array. So the first thing that we are going to write inside this for loop would be our if statements. The first if statement is, let us say, to find whether the number is positive. So if array of I is greater than 0, then it means the number is positive, and hence will increment the value of positive count by 1. And similarly, else if array of I is less than 0, then it means the value is a negative number, and hence will increment the value of negative count. And if it is not satisfying both these conditions, it means it is of course the value 0, and hence it comes under the else clause. So 0 count plus plus. So that would complete this for loop, and let us move on to the next step. So we have these three variables: positive count, negative count, and 0 count, and we also have the variable n, that is the length of this array. So the only thing that is remaining for us to do is to find the ratio of all these three categories and then print them. So let us find these three values. So we again use a double variable since we want a decimal value, and that too till 6 decimal places. So the positive ratio is equal to positive count divided by n, double negative ratio is equal to negative count divided by n, double, again you know the game, 0 ratio is equal to 0 count divided by n, and the rest is to print these values, and that too with just 6 decimal places. We have to be careful with that. So I said that we are using double here for a reason. So that reason is, if we use integer here instead of a double, the problem that we would encounter is positive count is an integer and n is also an integer. When we divide two integers, we would end up with an integer, and since we have the data type of positive ratio to be a double, the integer will be converted into a double. That is, if we have 5 to be the positive count and 10 to be the value of n, when we divide 5 by 10, we would get 0.5. But since it's an integer, the value of quotient, that is only the value 0, will be there as the result of this expression, and 0 will be converted into a double since the data type for positive ratio is double. So we would get the value 0.0 as the value that is being stored in the variable positive ratio. But that is not our answer. Our answer should be 0.5 in that case, when the positive count value is 5. So that is why we need to convert or have these values of positive count, negative count, and 0 count as doubles instead of an integer. When we run this program, I'll change these values to an integer and show you the output in order to make this a bit more clear. Now let's print these values with just 6 decimal places now. So printf and %.6 f comma the value, that is positive ratio. You are coding in C++ and you are using the printf function is the question that you are asking, and I know it, but I do not know how to truncate the decimal values to 6 decimal places in C++ cout statement. But since it is easy with the printf function, I have just imported the stdio library and used that function in order to print the values with 6 decimal places. I even searched in Stack Overflow how to use cout statement to truncate the values to 6 decimal places, and there was a function called set precision, and for that we have to pass the values towards these inputs, and it was a bit messy and hard to understand, and that is why I just used the printf statement here instead of all those messy stuff. So if you know the answer of how to truncate the decimal places to 6 decimal places in C++ in an easier way, please let us know in the comments below, and we'll pin that comment for others to know that as well. So the negative ratio, and of course the 0 ratio as well, and that would complete this function and hence our program too. Now let's copy this whole code, go to Hackerrank and submit it. So let us paste this function and run this code. We should see some positive signs. Okay, I have made a terrible mistake. It is a very silly mistake. That is, I have printed every number in the same line, but they want the output in different line, it seems. That is in the next line, it seems. So the only thing that we should add is a \n. Silly me. And that's it. That should complete our program. Not big of a deal. And we have got the output. Congratulations. Let's submit this code and check for each and every sample input that they have. And success. It's done. I'll show you what happens when we convert this into a double. As I said, we'll get the value of 0.0 for each and every ratio. I'm running it again. As you can see here, our output is 0.0 instead of 0.5, 0.3 and 1.6667. And the reason for that is we are using an integer here. So when we divide both these integers, since n is always greater than the positive count, we would get an approximate value between 0 to 1. And an approximate value to 0 to 1, when truncated to remove all those decimal places, we get 0, of course. And hence the value, that is the positive ratio, negative ratio and the 0 ratio, is being displayed as 0. But if we explicitly give here to convert it into a double and then divide the value, we would get our desired output. As you can see here, we have got the output as 0.5, but since we did not give double explicitly in these two values, we have got zeros in them. So if we give double explicitly here, the positive count will be converted into a double and then it will be divided by n, and hence we would get the resultant output in a decimal format, and that will be stored in the positive ratio, negative ratio and 0 ratio variables, and we are printing them with 6 decimal places. So that is the end of this program. Let us move on to the write-out session. So if we pass the array 1, 2 to the function that we just completed, what would be the output? Let me know your answers in the comment section below. If you love this video, please drop a like and comment down below if you have any questions. And please don't forget to click the subscribe button. We'll see you in the next episode of Daily Dose tomorrow. Until then, bye bye.